Okay, let's try and do this quickly before the dog arrives. Now, this could all go terribly, terribly wrong because today, for the very first time, I'm having a go at using oil paints as a wash. Now, in the past, I've always used and I like acrylic paints. I've never liked using oils or enamels. All too many bad memories from making kits from when I was a young lad and using enamels. The stench of glue and turpentine just has stayed with me all these years. So I've been set against using things like enamels and oils. But I got into a group that covers this particular um, game called Trench Crusade, and they all suggested no, the way you want to go is definitely to try oil paints to do your washes instead of any sort of acrylic effects to get washes. Things like the Citadel shading mediums and things like that. Now, one of the things about this is how this could go terribly wrong because it could end up very messy and covering the paint job that I've worked on uh, very hard so far. But the thing is, and as they quite rightly said in the forum that I was reading, the the main aesthetic of trench warfare is the grim dark. It's supposed to be gloomy and dirty and not clean looking, like this kind of like very pristine kind of paint job that I've done here, which you would normally associate with games like Warhammer. No, they say no, it needs to be down and dirty, and you need to be using these oil paints. So without further ado, and really all I'm doing here is trying to put off the inevitable disaster that's going to happen. Let's get down to doing some experimentation with oil paints. Now, first of all, I've taken a bit of a precaution, and I don't know if you can tell there, but I've glossed the work I've done with the acrylic paints. Yeah, I've used a gloss coat. Now, I'm told you don't really have to do that. You don't have to gloss the paints over your acrylics. They said, and they assure me, and I've been assured by several people, that using things like sort of thinners, white spirits, and oil paints over the top of my acrylics won't damage them as long as I'm not too hard with using the brush. So, I mean, I haven't done this before, so I can only take the advice that I'm given. Okay, now secondly, the oil paints that I've used, because this is an experiment, I didn't want to go absolutely mental and buy a really expensive brand. You can soon go online and find out which is the ones they recommend. Mostly it comes down to Derwent, which I've used to pass their art materials, and they are very good quality. I've gone a little downscale, and I got the cheaper brand of Dale Rowney, which is still a good make, but it's not up there with the likes of the Derwent Artist brand. Now, the difference in the brands, I'm told, is the size of the pigmentation in these. You can get actually cheaper, but you'll notice the difference. I want to kind of start midway, not the cheapest, but not the most expensive. In this line, the Dale Rowney Graduate is kind of somewhere in the middle. Okay, well, this is it. Oh boy. Okay, so what I want, I think, is a muddy kind of wash over this to go with the trench aesthetic, you know, the kind of World War One battlefield look. Everything's covered in mud, as he will be in a minute. So I selected out a black burnt umber, which is always a good one if you're doing scenery, and something lighter, this yellow ochre. I'm in second thoughts about this one. So let's start off with a bit of burnt umber. I don't want to make up too much. And a little bit of thinners. Now I've tried to get odourless because, as I say, I really do not like the stench of white spirit and thinners. A couple of drops in here. That was a bit more than a couple of drops actually, but I'm stabbing in the dark here about how much to use of this stuff, and then make up quite a thin wash. That's quite a nice brown actually. I quite like this. So it should actually not only provide the shading in the crevices in the model, bring out all the details, but also provide a kind of dirty sheen over the basic uniform to mute all the colours and bring it down to a well-worn soldier who's been in the trenches for quite a long while. So there we go, I'm getting there. Not quite as thin as I want yet, but I think looking at that brown, it's a bit too kind of like mahogany. So we'll pop in a little bit of black. I have no idea what I'm doing. All that time spent painting that figure. But there again, having said that, that was the reason I took the option to gloss coat the figure, because if this does go terribly wrong, as I suspect it probably will, I've got the option of cleaning it back. They'll still probably stain the original paint job, but at least all my work won't be lost. Okay, that feels kind of runny enough now, and it's darkened down as well. There we go. Mud. Okay, are you ready for this, guys? Oh geez. I do actually have a bigger brush, which I think may very well be the correct thing to go for here, because I'm doing a wash rather than focusing on detail. All right. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Well, there he is. My Trench Warfare new Antioch Lieutenant in his nice, pristine French blue uniform. Off we go. And really, I don't think there's any rhyme or reason to this. I think it's really a case of slapping it on, because I believe the process is, with oils, of course, they take a while to actually dry. Now, the thinners that I've put in, the odorless thinners, they evaporate quite quickly in just normal room temperature. There we go. But the oils themselves take quite a wee while. Just move it around a little bit. I don't have to do that too much, because there's a cleaning process after this. Once I've got to the point, oh, look at all those nice vivid colours. They've all gone. Oh yeah. But having said that, I do like the way the oils are seeping into all the crevices and folds of all the uniform and the figure. That is nice. I mean, it's seeped into all those. Yeah, I think that's about that'll do. I think that'll do, pig. That will do. Okay, so the deed done. That looked dirty enough, do you think? Okay, now what happens next is I have to go away now. I have to be patient and sort of bide my time and wait for both the spirit in this job to evaporate and the oil to have dried a bit. Now, what happens then is I come back in with something like one of these little bud things, dip that into a little bit of thinners again, just so it's not really wet, but just moist to the touch, you know, hardly there at all. Then come back in, and the surfaces which I want to remove the worst of this wash job, like say on that breastplate, the highlight on that breastplate, for example, I want to remove the wash from that, leaving the wash, the dark wash, around the edges and in the cracks, so it provides a little bit of shading, and hopefully it'll have stained the colours down as well. I like the way it's dulled down that helmet, which one of the criticisms I got on the forum was, wow, that helmet looks like a fireman's helmet. Unfortunately, this is one of the conventions, I think, in the game, that to help identify your officer figure amongst all the rest of the figures, that they've done like a red helmet, just so I presume it's so it's easier to pick out on the board. In reality, of course, red would be not very tactical at all. So I like the way that's actually dulled down, but you can see the way it's pooled as well, so there'll still be a fair amount of cleaning to do. So that's it, the deed's done. I do feel a little bit better that I've actually done it, because as you could tell from my rambling, I really wasn't keen on doing this. The gloss coat has provided me a little bit of a safety net, but at the end of the day, my original paint job, I do like the way it's dirtied up the shield already, but again, there's a little bit too much of pooling, so I just want to move that off. I want it stained on the shield, but I don't want it to pool. Apparently this is one of the problems that you might actually come up against with doing these oil washes like this, pooling. So I'm hoping that some of this will actually not be as bad, and I can remove it. Yeah, that seems to be going all right. Yeah, see how I've just touched it with a brush and it's kind of soaked up that pool to get rid of that, so I've been left with the washes in the crevices. Okay, well, that's done. I like the way it's toned down the boots as well. Yeah, some positive things already, I think, there. Okay, clean up time, and the next time you'll see me is about, well, won't be until this evening, I think. This is early in the morning, so I've got all day for the spirit to evaporate and the oils to dry. So, see you later.
Some time later.
Okay guys, this is about 7 hours later, and hopefully you can see this. Well, that's about as grim dark as you can possibly get. I don't know, I kind of like it. Yeah, it's dulled everything down. There are a few problems which I'll point out in a minute, but it's certainly done the job of really giving this quite vibrant model a more well-worn, I guess, look. And it's certainly gone into the crevices and enhanced the shadow areas. It's probably my only complaint is probably there's not a lot of contrast. Everything has been toned down, absolutely everything. This leaves me with the choice of, do I then go back and just pick out a few of the highlights to make things pop a little bit more? But anyway, I'll think about that. The main thing we should talk about is the things that have gone wrong. Now, the main thing, and let's see if I'll just turn it around so you see the top of the helmet there, and hopefully you can see that it's pooled, as I feared. This was my fault, really. I kind of knew about the problem with pooling when you use it as an overall wash rather than being specific and focused in doing your shading in the areas that, particularly as gravity pulls the wash down into particular areas, you can see, I've just used something to point here, there we go, you can see in the base of the helmet here how it is actually pulled at the back of the helmet, whereas if you turn it around here, that shading on the helmet there is absolutely perfect. That's exactly the way I wanted it to be. But unfortunately now I've been left with, on the reverse side of the helmet, where gravity has pulled this wash, I'm going to have to do something about that. Some of the areas you'll also notice is just a little bit too much shading for my liking. And finally, the rest I'm pretty okay about. I may bring up some of the highlights and some of the raised areas, but you can see on the shield, for example, I'm going to have to do something about that. That's too dirty, really, for my liking. The base, I'm quite pleased with that, actually. It really has given it a muddy look. So anyway, the first experiment is just using one of these cotton buds. Will it remove some of the staining? Now I'm being quite tough here, and that isn't taking off anything at all. So let's move to the next stage, which is to get a wee bit of the thinners. Now this is the tricky bit, because basically you've got to just kiss the surface of that model with a damp cotton bud. Just quickly dab it, take off some of it so it's barely wet, and let's see what happens now. Yeah, it's just starting to come off. Maybe a bit more. I particularly want that yellow stripe not to be too mucky. There you go. Starting to come off now. Yeah, you can see it's taken off. I wonder if I can be even more focused with like a brush. I use a combination of cotton bud and brush to get the effect that I'm after. Yeah, it's cleaned that up nicely. Let's clean a bit more the shield up here. This really shows you how it's only with experience, you know, you can get an inkling of where things are going to pull and how gentle you should be and focused with your wash. Actually, I'm starting to put like a bit more and more of the thinners on. There we go. Bit too much. Now, yeah, I'm going to have to be focused with a brush, I think, to try and work in to blend that shading in there. But yeah, that's working a bit better. There we go. Excellent. I don't know if you can see that. Working that bit at the end there. There we go. You know, even a more delicate brush, I think. I've got something smaller or pointier. Here. I did have one. Flipping heck, I lost it now. What is it? Yeah. Let's have a look. I think I've used up all my thinners, which is possibly evaporated. I'll have to watch out for that. Oops. Right, sharp brush. Get a bit more pointy. And let's see if I can just touch up that little bit there. Yeah. So actually, as I said, a kind of mixture of the cotton buds and brushes. You can don't want it too dark, that line there, as if I've outlined things. Yeah, that's about it. A bit of dark, but cool. But it's brought the yellow up, which is what I wanted. and the symbol on the shield. So that's how you can remove it. So let's have a look at that helmet where it has pulled at the back. And again, we'll try and be a bit focused. Oh yeah. You've got to be kind of delicate. Smashing. And I guess if I go too far, what I can do is actually stick a bit of the oil wash back on in a more focused manner, probably with a thin brush. But yeah, that's done that nicely. There we go. Well, that's taken that pull effect off there, but I'll have to go back in now and add a bit more. But that helmet's a nice dirty colour like I want. To be honest, I'm not sure if I want to do that much more. I think I might want to keep them a little bit more dirty like this. Do I want to do anything else? I don't want to keep them dirty. Let's just have a bit of experiment. Just highlight that a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to have to be careful because it kind of takes too much off if you're not. Where's my focus brush? There we go. I could even do with a thinner brush, really. And what I'm going to have to do is, where I make too much of a mess, is come back in and there we go. Just yeah, I'm going to need a lighter brush than those. A really delicate brush. Let's just have one go. I've got a really nice little brush somewhere. There we go. And just try and be really, really focused. Yeah. I'm really kind of like doing this the other way about, because, but then again, that's what this experiment was all about, to see the effects. I now know that for areas where I want a really focused shadow, that it's better to apply the wash in a more focused way to begin with, rather than doing this, which is the other way about, doing a blanket wash and there we go. Doing a blanket wash and then having to come back and rectify anything I'm not really happy with. There we go. I just want to, I forget what, pauldrons, I think these are called, these shoulder marks. Because they're right at the top, I want them highlighted the most. And just a little bit across the nose there. And a little bit on the there we go. Nice and dirty, but with some highlights where I want them to be. I'll rectify, like I said, I'll come back in and work on that helmet again. Yeah, it's going to take a little bit of experience, I think, to get the knack of this technique. I'm not sure if I would say it's any harder than using the acrylic shading media that I've used in the past. There's a, an knack to using them as well. But again, it's all about new things, isn't it? There we go. Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm quite happy with that. Okay. Well, there you go. Grimm Dark. Not brilliant, you know, I'll be the first to admit to that, but for it's done what it's meant to do, which was to teach me about a new technique, and it's certainly done what it was suggested it might do, which is bring this back down to a dirtier and grimier version of the model, rather than the very vibrant painted model that I had, which someone commented that it was very toy-like because of the coloration. You can kind of move these shading round with a wet brush as well, which is quite good. I quite like that. You just keep working on at it. As to whether is it a slower process than using the acrylic shading mediums, like the Citadel shading and weathering mediums? Perhaps, but I can see how advanced painters actually prefer this medium, because I think if you're willing to put in the extra work on this, you do actually come out with a better result. It just needs that extra work, which I think I'll get more experienced at eventually, but yeah. Okay. Now, what I'll do is, again, I'll leave this to dry, because obviously it's been reactivated because of my application of the white spirit. So I'll let that evaporate again and let the oils harden again. And then what I'll do is I'll finish it off with a blast of matte to take the gloss off. And then we'll have another look at it. And that's when I'll consider, am I going to do any highlighting on it? How would I rate this? Well, as an experiment, I'd say that I'm kind of like 70% pleased with it. You know, obviously, I have made mistakes. The overall deluge of wash that I put in, just as a blanket wash, that pooling of the wash is something you have to be very aware of when you're doing it. But the kind of how can I put it, the sheen it's put on, the dullness that it's applied to this, giving it that mucky look, I think is exactly what I was after for this kind of Grimm Dark model. So there we go. Fairly successful experiment, I think. Learned quite a bit, and with practice I guess I might actually see this as a very useful technique, which I'll use again.